When C.S. Lewis, the famous author and Christian apologist, wife Joy died in 1960, Lewis went into deep despair and a deep depression. He later put down his thoughts, and it was briefly after his wife died, in the book he called A Grief Observed, where he basically questions the nature of the so-called good God that he once believed in. He went on to say basically is what we humans see as good, God may not necessarily see as good. In fact, he says what God calls heaven, this actual quote from his book, may actually be, a human being should actually call hell. And he basically poses people as rats in a trap and God experimenting on them. He later revises that somewhat as he goes through the book and says God may be a holy, good surgeon who's operating on us for our own good. But the amazing thing about this book and Lewis's experience is he describes the emptiness, the total emptiness and voidness that one feels when you lose a loved one, like a wife, someone you're close to. I now know that feeling. I lost my wife of 42 years on June 3rd, 2009, about a month ago, as we're recording this vodcast. And I know that feeling of just total emptiness and wandering, and your mind doesn't know what to do. I mean, strange headaches, it's tough to swallow, tough to concentrate. It's not just depression, it's just there's an emptiness that's left. I had a wife who did everything with me for 42 years, who babied me, who made the key decisions in my life when I was thinking about quitting law school, was going to quit law school. She forced me back into law school, which changed really, I went on to be a lawyer and instructor at Rutherford Institute. It changed the course of religious freedom in this country in many ways. So she was responsible at key junctures in making sure that I would move to the next step and do these things, and she was always with me. So losing someone like that is an amazing trauma and something that you cannot, in my opinion, will not get over. But the question is, why would a so-called good God completely rip something out of your life? What is the answer to all this? Is it for my good? Lewis goes on in his book, C.S. Lewis, and talks about maybe God's a surgeon who's just cutting on you and doing it very patiently. And then he goes on to say, so maybe the tortures are necessary. Are the tortures necessary? Did God have to slam me down on my knees to make me come to my senses? Yes, maybe, hopefully. To be honest with you, there are no clear answers to any of these questions. But the one thing I think is really clear, and I think one great lesson I'm getting out of all of this, is that we never really appreciate the great ones around us. And my wife, Carol, was such a person. And that's a real lesson. I saw her as a form of divinity in many ways, and I wrote a poem, a very long poem to her on Valentine's Day, several months before she died, and I want to show you just how you can feel about someone, and you should tell them these kind of things. Let me quote from my poem. You were there when I was born of woman, when I took those first unsure steps, stumbling, nearly falling. You were there to hold my arms high as the slings and arrows of outrageous insanity fell upon my shores. You were there, always there holding me, folding me into your bosom, easing my pain. Who am I? You would know. Who am I? You would know. You were always there, my love. So I am at this juncture, and I hope that people who are watching this, in the world, every second someone dies. And some of you are going to lose some very, very close ones, people that you really love. So, as I say, appreciate them. Get ready. You're going to lose loved ones. And you can search for all the answers of why, and basically, in my opinion, there are no answers to these kind of questions. And C.S. Lewis came to that basic conclusion as he writes in his book. He went before God and prayed and asked for an answer, and he said it was like God waved his hand and no sound. And in the end, it said basically, as Lewis quotes, God says, patience, my child, you just don't understand.